Hey everyone, I'm Madison Appleman and I will be giving my commemorative speech on Operation Smile. So imagine taking a flight from your hometown to New Jersey, then to Amsterdam, and then finally landing in Accra, Ghana, on the other side of the world in just 16 hours. You arrive completely exhausted and almost unaware that you're even in Africa. But nonetheless, you're running on adrenaline because of the excitement for the next 2 weeks. After 4 years of dedication to a nonprofit organization and weeks of training, you have finally been assigned a location for a mission trip. A location whose beauty you would assume amaze you, but whose people you never knew would transform your perspective on life. After a night's rest in the country's capital, you endure another 3 hours by bus, traveling along dirt roads while locals try to sell you food through the window, which, by the way, was your only source of ventilation because it just so happened that you were placed on the bus with no AC. After finally driving through the last stretch of no man's land, you curve around a small road to find a little village. A village run down by chickens and all kinds of wildlife running around. On top of that village, up on a hill, lays a newly built structure. You look around to see if anybody else is confused by the ostracized appearance of such a building. Then you are made aware that that is the hotel you'll be staying at for the next 2 weeks. That is when it hits you that you will not be one of the locals as much as you want to be. You are there for a greater purpose. You realize that there is going to be an unspoken boundary between you and those you are helping, no matter how much you try to appear to not be an outsider. You try to sleep and not let your fear and nervousness of the next day consume you. You try to convince yourself that tomorrow you will make connections with people and you will realize that that unspoken boundary that you so much fear ceases to exist. Now let's take a different perspective of things. Imagine you're young again, about 6 or 7 years old. You can probably remember drawing chalk on the concrete, playing with your siblings, helping mom cook dinner, dancing around the house, or playing t-ball with dad. However, it is not your childhood that I want you to picture. I want you to picture being around 6 or 7 years old. Both your parents had just passed away and you were left to the care of your grandmother. However, your grandmother doesn't speak your language. You do have 2 older brothers who do love you, but they're old enough now to where they can live on their own. And to make your situation even more unique, you were born with a cleft lip and cleft palate. You never learned how to speak properly, and even when you did try, people would laugh at you. One day, you board a bus with your grandmother and travel for what seems like ages. You look around the bus and you notice that people have the same smile as you. You didn't even know that people with your condition existed, and in such numbers. The bus finally stops. You step out and see people of different color playing music, blowing bubbles, coloring, dancing, and bringing kids and parents to come play with them. You think it all seems fun, but you do not know these people, and you do not know these people, trust these people. None of them speak your language, and none of them know what you have been through. So you go sit in a corner by yourself and wait to go home. Operation Smile gave me the opportunity in April of 2018 to travel to Ghana on a mission trip. Operation Smile is a nonprofit organization that provides free, effective, and safe surgery for those with cleft lips and cleft palates around the world. Patients range from newborns to those in their 60s who have never been given the opportunity to repair their cleft conditions. Not only does Operation Smile provide free surgery, but they provide education on mission trips through their student volunteers. Education surrounds modules such as dental hygiene, hand washing, proper cooking, and burn care and prevention. On the mission trip, my role was to be one of those student educators. However, I soon found that my role transformed into something that you couldn't really define or assign to someone. As you could probably tell, that person traveling from the US to Africa was myself, and as for the little kid, his name is Akwame. And Akwame changed my life in a way that I could have never imagined. As I was patiently and anxiously waiting for the buses of prospective patients to arrive, I started to set up games and toys for the kids to play with. Surprisingly, bubbles are the coolest thing to play with if you've never seen them before. After the first few buses arrived, I began to get the hang of things and soon realized that the kids were actually quite welcoming. One of the families even bought me some snacks because I helped their kid through the screening process and played with them. The screening process is when prospective patients are evaluated for their need for surgery. It includes height and weight checks by nurses, nutrition evaluation by nutritionists, oral evaluations by dentists and orthodontists, analyzation by plastic surgeons, and among other specialties. Although I wasn't supposed to really go with the kid through the screening process, as there are many other children to entertain and attend to, the Operation Smile staff kind of gave me a pass because they needed the kid to go through the screening process, and he refused to do so without me by his side. Him and his family spoke a good amount of English, which made the connection really easy. After he finished and was referred to a local speech pathologist, he and his family went home and said their goodbyes. So I returned back to the kids station to play with the rest of the patients before the end of our long day. As we were almost done and kind of beginning to pack up, I overheard some nurses talking to a grandmother in the corner of the waiting room. It seemed like there was some awkward tension and maybe some misunderstanding going on. So our student sponsor went over there to see if she could help with anything, and she returned back with disappointment on her face. She told us that there was a kid, about 6 or 7 years old, who had just lost his parents, and he was left to the care of his grandmother, who spoke a different dialect than him. He was one of the last patients for that day that needed screening, but none of the staff could convince him to walk just a couple feet over to the nurse's station because not one person on site spoke his dialect. I waited a few seconds and thought, hey, I shouldn't overstep my boundary again as a student volunteer. But I decided that I was on this mission trip for patients and not for anybody else. So I walked over with this bright yellow bouncy ball and I kind of rolled it his way. And he looked at it excitedly, looked up at me, and then looked back at the ground. And I was going to let his disinterest in me stop me from trying to make a connection with him. I showed him that it was a bouncy ball, and he began to bounce it and even laughed a little. Then a local volunteer came to me and told me to try to bring him to the nurse's station to begin the screening process. So I did, and he held my hand the whole way over there. As I tried to walk away after doing my duty, he ran up to me and he grabbed a hold of my leg. He wouldn't move a single muscle unless he was holding on to me. And so I walked over and he sat on my lap. With each station that we went to, he opened up a little bit more and smiled a little wider. At the end of it, I realized that I hadn't spoken one single word to him that he could comprehend. All we did was laugh, show affection, and trusted each other. Later, as we awaited his blood work, which took about 2 hours, he fell asleep on my lap. At that moment, he became more than a patient to me. He became a child that I wish that I could call my own, and he became my own mission. Operation Smile, as any nonprofit I'm sure, is meant to not only change the lives of those that it serves, but also those that make up the organization. If there's one thing that I could take back from that mission trip and share with everyone, it would be this. It is often the people that have nothing to give and expect nothing in return that are the most kind and unforgivingly loving people. Kwame taught me that laughter and love are universal languages. Languages that create connections deeper than any spoken word. Thank you all, and I hope you guys have a great summer.